Peace and blessings, everyone. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And today is Ujima, aka Wednesday, October the 12th, 2022. And today we are going to have a discussion or a class titled Solving for X in Ancient Egyptian, and subtitled How the Comparative Method Can Be Used to Define Obscure Words. So all that and more when we return in just a moment. And welcome back. And again, just like to welcome everyone for joining the session. And we will be getting started shortly. I wanted to do something a little different from our normal lecture interaction. So normally I'll just present a series of slides and have the conversation and then wait for a question and answer at the end. But today I want to actually have a few people on the panel to kind of serve as students, so to speak, in this kind of virtual classroom, and we'll interact and engage as we go. And I find that this can be very fruitful for not only the people who are on the panel, but those who are watching as well. And so I want to demonstrate that the technique in which we're going to engage in today can be utilized by anyone. It's nothing special, but it is accessible. And I want to teach you this. And this is going to be in connection with, our continued discussions about ancient Kemet, the word and its etymology. And so what I want to give you today, for those who may be new to the channel or new to this discussion, the techniques that are used in order to come about the answers for which I have presented in the past. And so I, did a call out to a number of folks on my my Facebook and Twitter page or pages, I should say, to participate, and a few have agreed, and many of them are already in the chat. And so I do see you all, and I'm about to bring you in. And I just got a message from Brother Jehuti, who will be joining. But there are a few more slots left. So if there is anyone who is watching now who wants to join the panel, then you can click the link in the, well, it doesn't post on Twitter when and I'm streaming live on Twitter right now, but I posted it in the chat, so it's going to show up on YouTube as well as on the asarimhotep Facebook page. But on the YouTube chat, it is already pinned to the top. So if you are just joining us, the link is pinned to the top. So just want to give a shout out to a couple of people who have made themselves known in the chat already. We got Lion Times Baby in the building. Thank you for joining. Sister Tamika, who is reminding you all to big up and like the video. Harold Richardson is in the building. T High or THI, I'm going to say T High is in the building. Thank you for joining. Brother Sunjiata is in the building. Peace and blessings. Mr. Trey Day is in the building. And of course, reading his message. That's every day. And Donald Flournoy is in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Sister Emmy Kett is in the building. And Brother Robert Rand and Ancoma the Jed and Stephen McKenzie is all in the building. So without further ado, I want to add on our panel for the day. So we got Brother Lyons B in the building. We have Sister Sean Green in the building. We have Brother Chavez with the Mosi Warrior Clan is in the building. And we have Brother Jehuti Ma'at in the building. So peace and blessings to each and every one of you. How y'all doing today?
I just got done eating a salad, so I'm good.
Already. I should have ate something before I started, but oh well. Well, I want each one of you to just kind of introduce yourself. So I'm going to start with Brother Lionel B, and then we're going to go to Sister Sean, then Brother Jehuti, and then Brother Chavez.
I, I'm Brother Lionel. I always support every Black YouTube channel, and I'm looking forward to learning today about how to solve for X in the Metal Netcher. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Sister Sean.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm here in Los Angeles, California. I just enjoy learning and watching your YouTube videos. So
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming. And Brother Jehuti.
Peace. Jehudi Ma'at, part of the Set Shoe crew. Check out my page on YouTube for some laughs and entertainment.
Yeah, I just saw the one you just made. I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but I saw it today. And that was
Yesterday. Appreciate
that.
it. Yeah.
Appreciate you. It's amazing what goes on in these YouTube streets. But Brother Chavez.
I'm Brother Chavez from Houston, Texas.
Already.
Part of Kopi Pintside Research Team affiliated with Mosi Warrior Clan. And I'm also an author, and I'm also very interested in this process that we're about to go through as far as the historical comparative method. We're going to get some hands-on live stuff going on, so this is going to be real interesting.
No problem. All righty. Well, all right. Well, we are going to get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and do that. And I'm not sure if any of y'all are on your phones or on a computer, but regardless, for those of you who are in the that's on the panel, you can like put your mouse over the center main presenting area, and you'll see a little square on the bottom right hand corner. So if you need to go full screen on your screen, you can do that as well using that feature. And then you can exit when need be, just in case something is a little small, depending upon your device. All right. So I'll just go here and we will go from the beginning. So as stated earlier, the title of this conversation is called Solving for X in ancient Egyptian. And I just saw someone come in. I'm going to have to reduce my screen there. We have Brother Ujamaa in the building as well. Peace and blessings, Brother Ujamaa.
Hotep, peace.
All right. With the Seshu, he's the primary teacher of the Seshu crew. And, he's been involved in this conversation on the meaning of Kemet for a long time. And it's good to have at least one or two individuals who are familiar with the script, because that's going to be very important. So thank you for joining the panel, again, as well as everyone else. So, all righty. So let's do this. Going back to full screen. And hopefully the way that the presentation is showing that everything will be able to be seen very well. So, okay, so I titled it "Solving for X in Ancient Egyptian." So if many of you remember from mathematics, when you had, for example, a linear equation, and they like mx, equals, or let's just say 2x plus 5, equals, 10, right? And you will go through a process to solve for x being meaning the unknown. And it's from that mathematical process, for example, why when members of the Nation of Islam, first declare their adherence and loyalty to the values and tenets of Islam, interpreted through the Nation of Islam lens, they change their last name to X, the unknown, until they, develop and put in work, and they're given a Muslim name at some point in the future. But that concept of the X, like Malcolm X, is the association of the X and the unknown. So this is going to become important, of course, later on in the conversation. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/asarimhotep. Right. So, since we're going to be dealing with the comparative method and linguistics or whatnot, I just wanted to kind of reiterate something that Dr. Modupe Oduyoye has iterated in, his nominal work, Words and Meaning in Yoruba Religion. What's the subtitle? Linguistic Connections in Yoruba, Ancient Egyptian, and Semitic, which was published in 1996. He says, any student of African beliefs or any pre-literate society who does not have this tool, meaning philology or linguistics, is severely handicapped. Any researcher who undervalues it does so at his own peril. And in this continuous discussion of the etymology and the meaning of Kemet, those who have been opposed to the proposed definition that I have defined the word Kemet try to argue against it non-linguistically. And they don't understand the importance of linguistics, not only to, of course, this question, because it's the research question is a linguistic question, but to the overall field of historiography. And so I just wanted to stress that here. You can read the rest when you review this tape. I still say tape. That shows you how old is. And in the there's a chapter in a book written by Dr. Christopher Arrett titled Language Evidence and Religious History. And in that text, he reminds us that word reconstruction alone usually allows only modest inferences. Its main usefulness is in establishing historical continuities. If a name used today for a particular kind of spirit, for instance, can be shown to go back with little or no meaning change to an earlier language ancestral to the modern one, then the concept denoted by the term can be seen to have been current at least since the period of existence of the ancestral language. And you can read the rest on your own. The important point here is that the use of historical comparative linguistics is not only useful for establishing the relationships between language groups, but it helps to in the reconstruction of history itself. And so if we see in two or more languages these common vocabularies that go back to a time period of the proto language, which evolved into the daughter languages, which we are examining today, this lets us know about the relative age and the longevity of these particular terms, as evidenced by the language analysis that we did earlier. So just wanted to put that out there. And so that becomes very important. And I want to bring Dr. Modupe Oduyoye back into the conversation, because in an article in this text here, Traditional Religion in West Africa, he makes the statement, what Egypt does not explain should be sought for elsewhere in the extended family. And again, Dr. Modupe Oduyoye is a linguist and a theologian who graduated from Yale University. And currently he's an elder in his late 80s and lives in Nigeria on the west side of the continent of Africa. And so he's been putting in a lot of work doing these comparisons, and very fruitful ones, I might add. But the what he's speaking of here is this notion that the ancient Egyptians, of course, like when we're talking about words today in a living language, we can go to those people and ask them what they mean when they say this word. That's not the case with the ancient Egyptians. All we have to go by is the text. So the meanings of words, in many instances are really kind of best guesses, based upon a number of factors, because you can't verify fully without saying the living language. So there's many different things that goes into confirming that a word means a certain or has a certain meaning, right? So in that spirit, there are words that we just really don't know what they mean, and or the meaning is kind of obscure. And so in those cases, that's why Dr. Modupe Oduyoye states what Egypt does not explain should be sought for elsewhere in the extended family. You should look in the extended family for cognates, and then examine all of the cognates and how it is used in those languages, and then you'll get a better sense of the spirit behind the term as it is found in ancient Egypt, right? So with that, again, the title of this is Solving for X. And I use that phrase because linguistics is mathematics. And mathematics, according to Dr. Chang in her text, How to Bake Pie, is a technique that they use, that is based on pure logic. And she states in here, in math, the technique we use is logic. We only want to use sheer logical reasoning, not experiments, not physical evidence, not blind faith or hope or democracy or violence, just logic. So what are the things we study? We study anything that obeys the rules of logic, right? So when you think about math isn't just numbers. It's the study of anything that obeys the rules of logic. So she defines it further. She says mathematics is the study of anything that obeys the rules of logic using the rules of logic. So we're going to be using logic and deductive reasoning here today. And I add further into the conversation that mathematics ultimately is a formal language that informs us about the relationship between symbols and their ability to aid in the creation of models that allow us to reason about reality. Right? So, with that said, now we're going to get into the class participation part, right? So, a few axioms that we live by as historical comparative linguists is this, and just science in general, is that we're always looking for patterns. And we're always looking for patterns that eliminate accident and chance as an explanation for the patterns we think we see. So, what I always say is that one example is an accident or a mistake. Two examples is a coincidence. Three examples is a pattern. And then the more examples you have, the stronger the evidence is that, something is going on here and it's not here by accident, right? And so you kind of do this even in your real life. So some of y'all in relationships, if you open a door and you saw your significant other kiss someone on the face, they could come back and say that was an accident. That's not what it seems. Then a few months later, a year down the line, you see it happen again, and they like, oh, no, that was just a coincidence that happened. But if you see your significant other do it 3 times, you know for a fact that this is the pattern and something wrong, and they got to leave, right? And I know for some of y'all, the first time is all the time that you need in life to kick them out of your life. But the point being made here, when you see something happening 3 times in a row, that is you notice that something's going on here. So with that same logic, this is what we do in the ancient, when we're doing comparative linguistics. And then on the screen that I have right here, I have Proto-Bantu reconstructions on the column on the left-hand side. Then I have ancient Egyptian in the middle. And then I have the sound correspondences, the consonants on the roots that match for each one of them. So, anyone can volunteer here. What is the pattern that you see when you look at this table?
See a B and a D in certain places in the Proto-Bantu, and you see B and N in Egyptian, and they have similar meanings. Those are the correspondences on the right. That's why you have them over there. I'm assuming.
Right.
If I didn't know, if I hadn't read that, but yeah.
All right. Is that clear for everyone else on the panel?
Yeah.
It's clear to me.
Okay.
Pretty clear.
Is that what you see? All right. Now notice that on the Proto-Bantu, there are vowels in between the 2 consonants. So why don't I have vowels also in my sound correspondences? What might be the answer to that?
There were no vowels in the ancient Egyptian writing system.
All righty. Thank you. And so to reiterate, the reason why we're not dealing with the vowels at the current moment is because the ancient Egyptian language, to our knowledge, did not write out all of their vowels. right? So, as Brother Chavez stated, there's a consonant sequence in Proto-Bantu where the voiced bilabial plosive B is followed by the voiced apical sound, the D, and that hold on, someone else come in, and so this is what I'm gonna do. Hold on, I gotta go out of here to bring them in, and we have Brother Hassan is in the building. Peace and blessings, good brother.
Greetings.
All right. How much of the show were you able to see thus far?
I've seen it up to here, I believe.
Okay. All righty. No problem. All righty. So we're going to continue. So the B followed by the D in sequence in Proto-Bantu, based upon the pattern we see, matches up to B followed by N, as in Nancy, in the ancient Egyptian. So because there is a pattern there, we're able to create a formula that you see right under the table, where Proto-Bantu BD implies Middle Egyptian BN. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Totally.
All right. So because, we are budding scientists, we as scientists love to make predictions, and we love for our predictions to come true. And this is part of the reason. Sorry for the loud noise, if you can hear that in the background. It should be passing soon. But okay, they're real loud with it. Anyway, here we go. So we want to make predictions, and this is the reason why we look for the patterns that we're looking for, because the patterns allow us to make a prediction. And so given what we're seeing here, I asked the question at the bottom: what do we predict for Proto-Bantu Bod, meaning to shine? So notice that that word bod, Proto-Bantu Bod, is not in our original correspondence set. So we're asking the question, because it has this form and it has this meaning, if we were to expect a corresponding word in the ancient Egyptian language, what form would we expect based upon the patterns that we see here in the ancient Egyptian? So someone other than Chavez.
BN.
All righty. Sister Sean, do you agree with Brother Jehuti?
Yes.
All right. Brother Lionel?
I agree.
Okay. So you all would be right. So there's the word wabin, meaning to shine, in the ancient Egyptian language. Except this word has a prefix W in that I have in purple, which we'll get into in just a second. So as you can see, we are mapping sound for sound, Proto-Bantu B to Egyptian B, Proto-Bantu D to Egyptian N. So given this, these are the formulas here, and I'm not going to do any more formulas for y'all, so I can try to keep it simple. But this is what we mean by in terms of equality. So we going back, we see based upon this pattern that when presented with the word for Proto-Bantu Bod, meaning to shine, then we expect it in the root of the Egyptian word bin. And that's exactly what we saw here. But notice that there's this W here in the front. This is a grammatical morpheme. And so in the Proto-Bantu forms, you notice that there is no grammatical morphemes attached to it, because when they reconstruct languages, they normally reconstruct the morphemes, the grammatical morphemes, separate, and pay attention more so to the roots when they're reconstructing the lexicon. So let's do a living language instead. And so we have another wabin, meaning to rise. And I argue that it is cognate with this Chiluba Bantu, a living language, word Mubandu, meaning to ascend, mount, to rise, right? So we see similarity in meaning, and there's a general shape. Now keep in mind, let's go back. Proto-Bantu D shows up today in modern Bantu as L, and in some languages R, right? So there's a sound law in Bantu. When N is before an L sound, it often changes the L back to D. So you'll see end in its place. So even though you see end here, it's still following the laws that we established earlier, right? So, but we're not concerned. We are concerned, but we're not concerned with the main root. We're concerned with the prefix. So I have here W for Egyptian and M here. So what would I need to prove that the W prefix here is the same as Mu in Chiluba? Any one of y'all can answer.
You would need another example with in Chaluba where there would be the similar move where there's the word with in Egyptian with a W, right?
But not just an example. What was the axiom? One
Three
example is an
examples.
axiom. You need at least 3 examples, right? Because one example is an accident, is a mistake. 2 is coincidence. 3 is a pattern, right? So as predicted, the W is going to correspond, in the W in ancient Egyptian is going to correspond with the M in Chiluba. So we have these different words here that utilize that prefix, but we see that they correspond to what we see in ancient Egyptian. So Wadech or Wadech or Wadech, I forgot how you would try to pronounce that using Egyptology speak, meaning to bear fruit, to ripen, is cognate with Chiluba, Mu, and Guka, to be right. And then we have him, report of speech, brute, spread, a rumor, report, abroad, also an abnormal sound, a spokesman, right? Which corresponds to mukuma, report, noise, sound of a gun. Then we have in the verb form again, wugim, to grind. And then we have in Egyptian, in Chiluba, mukanda, to pound. And trust me when I say that I've established, even in the root words, that all of these sounds correspond, but we're not concerned with the roots at the moment, only the grammatical morpheme. But you can see by the establishment of the patterns, we can create these formulas. So Chiluba Mu implies Middle Egyptian W prefix, right?
Yes.
All righty. So now that y'all have gotten the basics, class is going to get started at this moment. So is this clear for everyone that is on the panel to read?
Yes, yes.
I see it clear on my end.
All right. Anybody else?
I can see it. I mean, it's small because I'm on my phone, but I can see it.
Okay. All righty. Brother Wujawu. He may have went somewhere. He may be on the phone. Brother Hassan.
Clear to me. Clear to me.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I've highlighted, I've actually tried to make this easier for y'all by highlighting the root consonants and bolding them in red. But based upon what you see here, and make sure that y'all are paying attention not only to the phonemes in red, but the meanings of the word itself. So, y'all know that I am not only matching form, but I am actually matching meanings as well. And there's going to be a different, slight variations in meanings as they're compared. Because again, we're dealing with two different languages, and you're dealing with different dictionary lexigraphers and the like. So, understand that some may be exact, some may be close in terms of the meaning. But based upon what you see thus far, what are the corresponding sounds for each language? So we're dealing with Kikongo now, another Bantu language, which is in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So Chikam is Egyptian, Kikongo is Kikongo out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I'm going to ask first, Brother Lonell. Are you there? If you're speaking, you're on mute. Because I can't see. We'll try someone else then. Brother Hassan.
It's an imperfect pattern, but you're trying to associate TM with L and G.
All righty. And so that NG in Kikongo is they're two separate sounds, but the G, sometimes D, K's and things will become nasalized. And a nasal will be attached to it. So you'll see it represented in IPA in using this grapheme here. And so it's like when you're singing, it's like so we count these two together, even though these are separate sounds, right? And so what he's saying is that in the first consonant position, ancient Egyptian T corresponds to Kikongo L, which you see right here. And in the second consonant position, ancient Egyptian M corresponds to ng. But notice this second row. That's a D instead of an L. But there's a sound law that is going on here. So remember beforehand where I said that N before an L often makes the L turn back into D and it becomes ind. Well, that's one variation in which the L becomes D again in Bantu. Another way is when the L is followed by I. So you see that formula over here. L plus I becomes D. So that's why it's Ndingala in Kikongo. Ndingama. Right? But in the other variations, we see it here. And so we notice, like in this one right here in Longwa, for a tree yielding very good timber for planks. And then Temer, a sacred tree in the third nome of Lower Egypt. This, even though it is preceded, the L is preceded by N, it didn't change to D. So this is one of the variations where that doesn't happen. And so that's why I say in this case, it is the L becomes D because of the I right behind it, right? But does anyone looking at these examples, and I try to, although 3 is the minimum, my minimum usually is 4 or 5. So I'm gonna try to have 5 examples of each of these in the slides upcoming. But is there any disagreement in terms of the meanings for the forms that you see here in relation to ancient Egyptian, or that you may have a question about? Anybody?
They all seem pretty close
Yeah.
in semantics, but the last one, the very last one,
Mm-hmm.
Tama, that'll be the I think that's the furthest from the semantic reach.
Yeah, that was going to be my what I was going to say. They all seem similar. The other one seems I don't know, a little bit reaching.
I see. And this is why you have the number which is required. Because now I can justify this in many ways, but we don't have time here. But I put this here for a purpose, because let's just say that this entry here, this last one, doesn't work out. Like it's a bad entry. How many examples do we still have that are solid?
Basically 3.
4.
Yep. Oh,
So-
hold on. Yeah.
So you have
1, 2, 3, 4.
you
Yep,
have
4.
you have 4 examples, which is 1 over the standard threshold to establish the pattern. So if I was unable to justify this, I would still be able to justify the sound correspondences. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why you try to have more, just in case, someone tries to. That's why I try to have like 10, just in case somebody tries to dismiss 2 or 3 of them. You can't dismiss them all, because now you're being disingenuous, right? So that's something that you should keep in mind when you're kind of reviewing text like this. So with that said, here's a word in the ancient Egyptian language that means that has our root tm and is suffixed by the nasalized uvular trio, which is the R type sound. That means a troop of soldiers or a group of something. And here are the hieroglyphs for the word. So now, given the patterns which we established, what do y'all predict the cognate form to be, at least in the root, in Kikongo?
L or D, and for the where the T is at for corresponding to T, and then NG for where the M is at.
All right. Anybody
Corresponding
disagree?
to.
Anybody disagree with Chavez? Y'all can jump in. Don't be afraid
No,
to
no, I don't.
talk.
I don't. I agree.
All right. All right. So now, so what y'all just did is y'all made a prediction again based upon the sound patterns. And you would be correct, Brother Chavez. But notice in this form, the L becomes D. But remember our sound law. The N plus L becomes ind. But this is the allophone for L in the Kikongo language. So we have troop of soldiers, a group, and then we have in Kikongo and Ndonga, crowd, multitude, host, great number of people, party, assembly, company, a gang. So if y'all want to start using some African words for saying, it was a gang of, mofos at the club. Y'all could say it was an Ndonga of mofos at the club. We got to start substituting.
Oh, I love it.
Right.
Right. So, all right. But notice, so now I have the hieroglyphs here. So now you see this is kind of a sheath with some arrows, I believe, in the sack, right? But notice it's a bundle of them. It's a group. So this is, for those that don't read the Meta Netra, this is T, the T right here. And then this is for Ma, the TM. This is a biliteral here, the M plus the nasalized velar trio. All right. And so they're trying to use this for the for kind of a tri-radical root. The combining of the monoliteral with the biliteral here. But based upon this, on the sound correspondences, we know that it is actually TM that is the root, and that this is in fact a suffix or may have served as a vowel. We don't know just yet. Right? So was that very clear? Any questions on this one?
Pretty clear.
All right.
Yep.
So now we're going to move over to one of my favorite languages, Chiluba. So we see on the left-hand side the consonant sequence, M as in Mary and N as in Nancy. So M followed by N. And then we have over here in Chiluba, B as in boy and L as in Larry. And notice in this second column, in the second column in the second row, this word mubidi. Notice how in the root is bila, but in this form here, the L turns into D. Why? Because it is followed by I. So just keep that in mind. But I'm gonna let y'all look at the entries. Give you a few seconds. Let me see what's going on in the chat on my phone if I can. And I see that people in the chat are in fact participating. And so I appreciate each and every one of y'all. And let's see. Fortitude Tribe says, I ain't messing with an Ndonga. Exactly. You see a gang of or an Ndonga full of Negroes in front of the apartment building, just keep going. Let me see here. Alrighty. So I gave y'all a few moments. Any questions on any of the correspondences here? Any justification needed? Talking to the panel.
No, only thing I think somebody may ask is why the blank entry at the bottom. I probably pretty much got to understand it, but that's the only
And
question I think.
what's
In
the
the Egyptian
for what word?
at the bottom. No, I'm just saying why was one empty?
Oh, okay. It's empty because this entry over here in Chiluba also corresponds with this group here. So I usually keep it blank to let everyone know that this is all together. Now, if there was no entry for the ancient Egyptian, this would still be blank, but I normally put like a little dash there to let you know that you're not counting this square. So instead of putting the entries in here twice for this table, for this cell and this cell, I just do it once and just leave the bottom blank to let you know that they're both here. So to move about, to shift, to impregnate, begetter, to set in motion, to shift is all built on the same root. So meaning entry or input and entrance is still within the same semantic universe. But the main root, even for these variations here, is this word here, buela. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
yeah, I would add that it looks like the Egyptian word semenmen might be a little reach.
To set in motion or to shift a boundary.
Yes.
Um, I would not remember that semendus is the causative of men, to move about, to shift. So if you're saying that men is off, then men would be off too. So remember, buela means to enter, to penetrate, to introduce, to engage, to undertake, to indulge, impregnate, penetrate, abound in, invade, fill, to lie down for the sun. This is a word of movement. It's a verb of motion. That's why you enter, to penetrate. That's why this men here means to impregnate. Notice that this buela also means impregnate. So when you're entering into a woman, you're injecting something into her. It's the same semantic field. So that's why you have all of these, because they're built off of the same root.
I got you. I got you. It's a causative. That's why I was just reading the meanings. The meanings seem like a reach, but since you explained it being a causative, now it makes more sense.
All right. Now, what I was expecting from y'all was this entry right here, ma, to see, to look. So notice that its second consonant is different from these other ones. Now, I wouldn't be able to explain it here on just using what I'm showing you now, but this sound here that is represented by this grapheme, which we believe is the nasalized uvular trill, is a nasalized type of R sound. And this grapheme interchanges with this grapheme in the ancient Egyptian. And both the N and the nasalized uvular trill corresponds to L. I would have to show you some other examples, but for the moment, believe me when I say that these, even though this form is different, it belongs here in this data set, right? And so notice the same thing that we have earlier. So it can be confusing here, because is this bandila ND. I mean, the L turned to D because of the N or the following I behind it, right? And based upon some other data, I chose end, just in the same way that I did here for Bwanda, thread, wire, and then, Menu or Minwa, thread in ancient Egyptian. So now, given what you see here, what do y'all predict in Chiluba that corresponds to Egyptian Amen, right hand Western, or Amenet, right side West, land of the dead? What forms would we expect based upon the sound correspondences that we saw in the previous slide for these roots here in Egyptian? I'm gonna go to Sister Shauna. Or Sean, am I saying that right? Sean or Shauna? Are you there? I know she's in at work, and I think Ujamaa was at work too.
Hey, peace. Yeah, I was this entire time I'm listening, but I wasn't at the computer to unmute, so it's crazy that I could hear you and hear everything, but I couldn't respond back. But could you go back to the previous slide?
No doubt.
Okay, so yes, all right. So the predicted forms would be using the correspondence column that you have on the right, where the MN sequence in Amen would correspond in a predictable way in Chiluba as a BL, a word that has the form with the BL sequence or BND sequence as you have. And so, so you would look for that form.
Excellent. And so, but before we reveal the cognate for it, I want y'all to kind of pay attention to the graphemes. So over here, we have the word Amen, right hand, and Western. And so we have this, which is, stands for all three consonants, or the semi-consonant here, the, E or Y, and then M and N. It doesn't kind of reveal much in terms of something that you can conceptualize in terms of the right hand or Western. And so remember that the ancient Egyptian orientation was from the source of the river, which would be their north, and the end of the river would be their south. And so when you're looking at the source of the river, standing in Egypt, what we're calling the west would be on the right side, and what they're called the east would be on the left side. So that's why it's right hand and Western. But there's nothing too revealing about the glyphs here. But for the second entry, right side, west, land of the west, what is different about this form here? Brother Jehuti?
It's a feminine form,
All righty.
and it has the land determinative,
Exactly.
or the irrigated determinative.
Right. So based upon the graphemes here, and this is the determinative or the classifier, it is telling us that this is a place, or that you should look in the direction of space and time, because the land determinative is here, right? And so what I want y'all to kind of put together is that there is a correlation between the determinatives or the classifiers and the root word itself, right? And, not to be too detailed, but often when you see it terminated by spaces, N23, N36, the 049, sometimes, etc., is either the root word is often going to be terminated grammatically with a W or a T, right? But that's a different conversation. What'd you say?
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
So given the question you asked earlier, on the predictability of the forms to look for. So based on the previous slide, we know that the corresponding forms to look for would be a BL sequence or BND sequence. And so now with what you're showing with this is that the water irrigation determinative or classifier also, not only do you see the form, now you're actually dealing with the meaning side, that it has to kind of match up on that. Is that well, I guess that's my question to you. So now, your first question was more so the form to look for, and now are you homing in
Exactly.
on the semantic meaning?
Yeah, I'm building up to that, and you hit it right on the mark. But for this one, I wanted to concentrate on something else. So we kind of skipped something. So notice that I have in blue, where there's an ancient Egyptian T suffix, is corresponding to chi prefix in Chiluba, or mu in Chiluba. Now, I know I haven't given enough examples to kind of justify this in this data set. For those of you who have been following the Kemet debate, you know that I've justified the chi on many occasions in terms of the chi prefix corresponding to the ancient Egyptian T suffix. But I haven't talked too much about the mu also corresponding to the T. And so when we see the correspondence for Chiluba, which is mu bolelu, mu buelu, west and western, as predictable by some other correspondences that I've done, it's not surprising that it is either, going to be chi buelu or mu buelu. It's little stuff like this that you may miss at just kind of a first glance that prove the relatability of the term, of the two languages. But the Chiluba is very important in this because it tells us something here, because the root has to deal with motion and going over the hill and setting down, like in this form here, to lie down for the sun. That's how we get the word west and western. And so it's in relationship to the motion of the sun, the moving sun that moves and lays down on the west side. So it's where the sun sets. It moves and sets ultimately. So now we have another example. This time we're going to go to the Yoruba people, all the way over there in Nigeria. So I'm gonna pause it here, and y'all take a look, and we'll come back in a sec. So let me read some comments on my phone, see if any of today says, oh, Coke system, okay, how that will have us to Well, come on, read left hand side. Oh, it says come on. That's brother Aziz. And everything else I saw beforehand. And I'm just now seeing this response from African Renaissance. He said, note the Ma and Bandila. People may ask, yep, exactly. So I didn't see why, but okay, they're having their own discussion, and I'm just rambling. So it's just not total silence. But has everybody been able to examine and look at the forms presented here?
I have. Form and meetings is looking pretty accurate.
All right. Sister Sean, are you still with us? Brother Lionel, are you still there with us? Did he go? I really can't see who's on the phone. I'm assuming both of them left already. Brother Hassan, are you still there? Let me just take a quick look and see who's actually in. So, Brother Jehuti, Sean, Chavez. So, Lionel's gone, and Brother Hassan's gone. All right, cool. So now, going to go back here. So, Miss Green, she may be with her students. So I'll come back and see if she's, back on a little later. But Brother Jehuti, what do you see in terms of the correspondences?
We stated in Chicom that the H with the dot under it corresponds to the T in Yoruba, and the M corresponds to N. The M in Chicom corresponds to the N in Yoruba.
All right. Is there any anomaly that you see in terms of either form or meaning that you would want to address?
The W, the driver, slugger, shepherd.
All right. Yes.
That one.
Yes. And I put that there just to let you know that the M and W, also the B and W, interchange in ancient Egyptian and or correspond to each other in dialect forms and or are allophones of each other. So there's different types of relationships which we can explore. So I rarely ever ask y'all to have faith in me because demonstration beats conversation. But trust me for now that M and W are allophones of each other. And so there's different ways in which that could happen. But one of the main ways that it happens is when the M sound is between two vowels and it weakens the M or the B sound and it becomes W, right? And so, but, in terms of semantics, are there any issues semantically? And I heard someone else come back in. So let me. Oh, well, I thought I heard someone else come back in.
And she left and came back.
Oh, okay. Is that you, Sister Sean? See, it may be an issue, not necessarily that she's not there, but she may be having an audio issue. And so we'll let her work that out. So again, is there any semantic issues that y'all have? None?
None.
All righty. So as always, when we have this word in Egyptian that was not a part of our original correspondence set, what do we predict for Egyptian dotted HM consonant sequence in Yoruba, based upon the sound laws that we established earlier?
A T and an N.
All righty. So does anyone disagree?
Nope.
Nope.
All righty.
T
So
and N.
and it seems redundant, but when I want to drive this point home, that the reason we do the sound meaning correspondences is so that we can predict what the form will be in the cognate language, in the related language, right? So, of course, we have this Yoruba word, tanu, meaning to cast out or to eject, right? That is in the same semantic universe. And of course, we want to go back and look at the actual hieroglyphs. So, for the uniqueness of what you see in the hieroglyph here, you will kind of have to know the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic script. So I already know that Ujamaa knows. So I'm hearing someone come back in. There you go. And I probably have to get on my phone. So stop the stream like that. But so I'm going to ask Brother Chavez, what do you see unique about the hieroglyphs here? So this is HM, that the dotted HM that you see here, and this is, which is a biliteral. This is a phonetic complement of the M, that you see here, and then we have the classifier and the determinative.
Yeah, it's walking a certain way. It's
All right.
walking back.
All righty. So, and
Chavez is on it, boy. Chavez is on it. So, Chavez actually reads. No, he's not.
See, I already know if I ask you, so I'll let you explain why the direction that the feet are walking here is significant, Brother Ujamaa.
Okay, so and Chavez hit it on the head. He said that it's walking backwards, and the reason why he knows that is because we always read into the glyphs as if we're having a conversation with the particular object in its face. And so the glyphs are, in this case, read from left to right. So that final glyph, notice that the legs are going backwards against the direction of the other two. And so that will indicate backwards, or to drive back or repel, which is exactly what the word hem means here in this case.
Exactly. And if this was a war, you would say something along the lines of send them packing back in the other direction, right? So you're ejecting them away from you. So that's what that means. So now going back to your comment and or question from earlier, Brother Ujamaa, in terms of why it's important to pay attention to the determinatives or the classifiers, because in the cognate word is going to be in sync with the classifier, the meaning. So when we cast out or we eject in the opposite direction. instead of inviting someone to come in, right? So we know that this is on point because it matches in form of the root, and the determinatives line up with the meaning, right? Besides the meaning that is given in the Egyptological dictionaries, right? So
Is that some sort of
I got a
meta
quick
magic you
question.
doing?
hold on. Yeah, both came on at the same time. So Brother Jehudi and then Brother Chavez.
I just wanted to know if that was some kind of meta magic you were performing just now. The way you change these glyphs into these African letters like that. How do you do that?
hey, I learned from the best. You mix a little Bronx magic with a little Brooklyn magic, and then you get meta magic. And
Bong bong.
already. But Brother Chavez.
Okay, I wanted to know, like, if you don't have the classifier or determinative matching, does that falsify the cognate?
No.
Or
And
that doesn't necessarily mean that.
You're jumping ahead. You're trying to use your brain on us. We don't like that in these streets. We don't like black
all right,
men.
let me slow down.
Thinking ahead and thinking strategically. We can't allow that. So, same thing that you've been seeing earlier, except this time we only have 4 examples. So I'm gonna let y'all look at it and tell me what y'all see in terms of possible sound correspondences and or issues that you may raise concerning the semantics, the meanings of the terms, or the compare terms at least.
ZN corresponds with SNG in Chiluba, and then the thing anomaly is the SH in needle, and the KNG versus the S. That's another change in that I see that's different.
All right. Anybody else notice? And do you agree with Brother Chavez's analysis? Don't all speak at once.
Yeah, from what I heard, I agree.
All right. So some explanations. So in the form kashingi, meaning needle, when the S is followed by the I, it palatalizes further into sh. So what we have to keep in mind is that, consonants are sensitive to the environments in which they are in, right? And so in this case, just like how when the I follows the L sound, it transforms the L into a D. When the I follows the S sound, the sibilant sound, it turns it into sh, as in Sharon or Shaka Zulu, whatever. Right. So it's a phenomenon in linguistics called palatalization. So speaking of palatalize, you see that other form, kinga, meaning to suffer, to be at the end of my resources. And so this is the at least the one out of the odd bunch that still has the K that has been unpalatalized into S. And so, so this is one of the reasons why we do several different sets, because I may do another set where all the Z's and S's in ancient Egyptian correspond to nothing but K's, which I have done in other works. And, but there's a phenomenon because of some lost prefixes where I know for a fact it happens in Wolof and in Bantu, and I forgot the other language, but it also happens in ancient Egyptian, where you'll have two variations of words, one with a K and one with an S variant as the first consonant. And I discussed that in the text. Lilius Holmberger is the first that I know to bring that phenomena out, and so this would be the anomaly. I would have to show more examples of K equals Z, but we can see here that it's just unpalatalized. And even though this E or this E here, this also normally causes palatalization. So, we may need to look at some other dialect forms, or this just may happen in the future, so we don't know. But even if we didn't have this, so we notice that in a variant of the root, the K becomes S, kusinga, to mourn someone, to lament, which is in the same semantic realm as someone who is suffering and the like. So is there any other questions or issues? Even with the one irregularity right here.
Just one little question in the correspondences. Why does the in the NG, why does the N at the end look like that, like an N and J combined?
These are the IPA representations of sounds, and so normally when this particular N with the kind of loop under it itself would be equivalent to a biliteral in the ancient Egyptian, representing two consonants in sequence. Itself is ng, but ng is not a phoneme itself in Bantu. That's why I said earlier that the N and the G are actually two different sounds. The final the G here is the second consonant, but it's nasalized with the N. And when we see these two consonants together, we represent it in the IPA like this.
Thank you, appreciate it.
No problem. So we've already said that where there's ZN sequence in Egyptian, we expect a SNG, even though this is an irregular, or even a KNG. So we would expect that, from Chiluba, but notice here, this word sin or zin, that I don't have a definition. So how would we discover what this word means if no definition was provided?
MetaNet your magic.
So, looking at the glyphs, and just a quick breakdown. This is the Z sound, which merged with S later on in the language. This is N, this is N, and this glyph here is Zen or Sin itself. So it's just a complement to the monoliterals here. So this is the biliteral, this is the monoliteral, right? So this is the root. Even though it's written on here twice, you only read it one time as Zen. But so here's the cutoff, and here are the two determinatives. So what can we surmise just looking at the graphemes, even though we're not provided right now with the meaning?
So just with the glyphs themselves, you know that you already have the Z and the N so far. And then semantically, it would have to do with motion because of the legs. And then it would have to do with the class of possibly with persons.
Right. And so we know a human is involved in the word because we have at the end here uh, a classifier of a human being, in this case, the sitting man, and then preceding it. So you see when Brother Chavez, gave insight into that other example, the direction of the glyphs for to eject, we see it's in the opposite direction, the normal direction in which we would normally read. So, normally when we see this hieroglyph as a determinative or a classifier, we know that some kind of action is involved. So, but the question is this word a noun or a verb? Because is it the action that a human being does, or is it a human being doing an action? If that makes sense. So there's just no way that we can tell just by this example what the meaning is. It's ambiguous. It's unclear. So in that case, it is best to try to look at the word as it is placed in the other words in an actual sentence in the language, right? So this is from the TLA, and I translated from the German into English. Here are the hieroglyphs, the transliteration of the using the manual decodage of the hieroglyphs, and I have in red where this word is in the sentence or the phrase. And normally the TLA gives you the meaning right here, but I put dot 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 dot. So of course y'all won't try to look up real quick and see what it is, so I can do it. And even in the sentence, I have it in red dot dot dot. So let's read the sentence here. It says, "And you sit as one who is strong, who conquered in all foreign lands, a blank, a Zen or Zenin, who fought for his majesty, Amenhotep, ruler of Heliopolis, in Naharina, who determined the fate of Pachati, co-determined." Does that give us any insight? Are y'all able to kind of guess what the meaning would be based upon its placement in the sentence?
Had to be somebody who was protecting the king or his majesty.
Anybody else?
Well, if you, yeah, I mean, so this is context clues, obviously.
Mhm.
So, and you sit as one who is strong, who conquered. So it's talking to a person in second person. So somebody's sitting or stationed as somebody being described as strong, somebody who conquered something or just foreign lands, and then a blank who fought. So somebody who is strong, somebody who conquered, and somebody who fights. And so the only thing, or the scope of it, would have to be a fighter, a soldier, a warrior, a protector. Those kind of things come to mind.
All right. Well,
Yeah, I agree.
we would have to see at least another example to see if that is in fact the case. So let's do one more. So this is the source again, TLA, and the Luxor Temple, pylon of Ramesses II. In the blue is the hieroglyph transliteration. And as I said earlier, Z becomes S. So they have it as SNN this time. I have the meaning blocked out, and it says, he, who equals a moon, made every distant land. See my victory through my sickle sword arm. And no charioteer, and not simply an army blank or sinin, and not a charioteer. I'll let y'all read it on your own and see what you can make of
It sounds like it's a noun.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did from the other example.
So if you can you go back to the previous example real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what we didn't say on this one, and I don't know if you because I don't want to. Well, you already passed this one, so I can say it. So there's certain classes of words that follow other words. So the word a before the three dots in the translation, that's a indefinite article. Or a, it's saying a and, we say a and the, and so only a noun can follow that. So much that would lean us towards a noun to answer that. And then if you go to the second example, so if you go to the second one, and then it says not a simple army blank. So army would be an adjective describing the blank, and that blank position syntactically would also be a noun. So I think Travis is on point with it being a noun in terms of its syntactic class, word class. And so it has to do with fighting, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So that's how you would figure that out. Deductive reasoning.
All righty. So I see we have, Mat says a soldier. Sister Mika says a soldier, maybe. Imat comes back with a commander. Nicole Green says army, soldier, warrior. And so, based upon this, you all would be correct. And so the word Zenin, warrior, soldier, I misspelled that, but it should be chariot, fighter. And, in Chiluba, the cognate would be Chisonga, warrior. So you see how we're using logic and we're using deductive reasoning to come to the meaning. So beforehand, I made it real easy because I gave you the meanings. But there's in the previous ones, I didn't give you the meaning. So we had to look at the determinatives, but the determinatives really didn't give us any insight. So now we look at the entry in the environment of a sentence or a paragraph. And, so now when you read it and you sit as one who is strong, who conquered in all foreign lands, a soldier, a warrior who fought for his majesty, Amenhotep, ruler of Heliopolis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it fits into the sentence and it makes it make sense. So that's one way in trying to get at the meaning, looking for the context clues in the sentence. So now, this is going to be primarily our last example, and I have 5 here, but I'm going to, and y'all can come back later and look at the other 2 at the bottom. But so these are the 3 that are at the top, and this time I included the hieroglyphs for the words. So this is the word ak, or a lot of us will say ak, or it could be rek, because of the nasalized or trills an R type sound. And it corresponds. Now we're going to isiZulu, all the way in South Africa. And so somebody tell me, what do y'all see in terms of the correspondences?
I see LNG corresponds with Ak in the Zulu.
Anybody disagree?
No. I would have a question on in the second row, first column.
Mhm.
We have Ak Ak. Is there an explanation? I mean, I know that that's the second Ak. Is that a duplication of the first one? Is that just to emphasize something?
It's a reduplication, and African languages in general, and ancient Egyptian in particular, they may do reduplications for a variety of reasons. So you may have a verb, a monosyllabic, excuse me. Well, it would technically be monosyllabic, but two consonants in sequence that is a verb, and then they'll double it and it becomes a noun. Or if it is a verb or a noun, they'll double it to and it'll still keep its state, but it'll be used to either emphasize something, or sometimes it'll be used to create a different word but within the same semantic context, and that's exactly what you see here. So ak ak, or rek, however you want to pronounce it, is reduplicated here, and we're saying twilight, dawn, dusk. So it's not just light, it's not just shining light, it's the particular light in the when the sun rises or sets, right? So is that so it's a kind of light that is associated with a particular time. So there is a reduplication in regards to its root meaning ultimately light, and we see uh, in isiZulu, the root meaning to shine, the verb, and notice that we have here shine as the verb, but we have here sunlight, sunshine, light. But notice that it is suffixed by this W, and this W here nominalizes the root, the verb. So it comes from a root meaning to shine, and this W here nominalizes it. And we have these similar kind of prefixes and suffixes and the like that give us various different forms. So like langa meaning to shine, but ilanga or ililanga meaning sun, heat, heat of the sun, sunshine, sunlight, etc. Right? So anybody else? Got any issue? And again, you won't be able to see too much, but this one has to deal with Ak and crops and plants, and this one Ak being good, beneficial, glorious, faithful, devoted to, etc. Lunga, da 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 da.
I do see that if we added Medu in front of Aku,
Mhm.
it would be Medu Nature Magic. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's right here. Magical power, mastery. All righty. So now, and I may have to have Brother Ujawu sit this one out. At least defining it, because he may get it. But so I'm giving you the graphemes again, but I have a question mark here. So
That's the Medu Neter magician ancestor sitting on his throne.
but
That's the determinative. Yeah.
so this is the determinative, and this is the root. But if I gave you no meaning again. And this time, I'm not even going to give you a source where the word is found. You just got to go off of the strength of the word itself. What can you tell about the word? So we have this form here, and it has this little line behind it. Normally, this line means that you take the grapheme before it literally. And it may have some other implications, but if that rule was to apply each time, does this mean that this word means a bird, a type of bird?
I would think it would mean, if I was guessing, like a sacred type of bird, or it's a bird held high esteem, some sort.
Why would you assume high
Some-
esteem? What
Because
in this grapheme says that this has to deal with someone of great esteem?
sitting dude in the chair with something in his hand don't look like a regular. He ain't on the knees or nothing. So I would just make that assumption.
What's that in his hand?
It slipped. What's this shit?
It's a flail.
Yeah, that was it called.
All right. Is Sister Sean still there, or is she still having trouble?
I think she came with.
All righty. So it's just y'all three. All righty. So we see a flare in the hand. This is an emblem of royalty. And it looks like, it's a special type of seat that this person is sitting on. So this is one of the reasons why Brother Chavez said, there may have something to do with excellency. And because I heard someone coming in. Coma Dejed is back. Sister Sean. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, good. Good.
All righty. And Sister Sean, are you still there? Yeah, I'm thinking there's something wrong with her mic or something like that. All righty. And Brother Ankoma, how much of the show were you able to catch?
I catch the whole show so far.
I'm sorry?
I caught the whole show so far.
Oh, okay. All righty. So you caught the last part when they said that this is, we assume it's somebody of royalty, of high status, because this is an emblem. Hopefully y'all can see my mouse circling, an emblem of royalty, right? So
Yeah.
we know that this hieroglyph is is its own, what's the word I'm looking for? It's an ideogram itself. And it has its own word associated with it, or is used to spell words with these consonants in sequence. The sh, p, and s sounds. And sometimes it's followed with the I, so shapesi, right? So a strategy is, well, if we're not given any other clues as to what this word can mean, let's look at the determinative and see what other words it is used in. And so we can start off in this instance with words that mean that are given a consonant sequence shapes, since that's how you would refer to this grapheme, right? So when we look at some words here, let's go through them each individually. So you have shapes, a word meaning statue or likeness. Do y'all think that's the sense that is being used in the other word, in the ak word?
No.
All right. We have Shapes tomb chapel. Is
Nope.
any all right? We have Shapesi libation vase.
Mm-mm.
We have Shapesu a noble,
We got
elegant
some.
and riches.
Getting something right here with that one and the next one and the one after that and the one after that.
So, you know,
Yeah, that one there.
so go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
Yeah, that
interrupted.
one there might be more valid. That
All
one might be
righty.
more valid for it.
So we're assuming here that the Shapesi is used more so in its relationship to the idea of hold on one sec. I'm gonna enter studio on my phone, and so I'm gonna mute that so I don't get no feedback. So I hear someone keep trying to come in. I'm sorry. Gonna add her to the stream. And you should be in. Sister Sean, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Alrighty.
And I'm on my work computer as well because this phone keeps going out.
Oh, I see. All righty. But you've been able to follow.
Yes, I've been here the whole time.
Alrighty. So it seems like the vote is that it has to deal with something
Excuse.
with
You said the name of the bird is the what?
the name of the what? The word?
The bird. He talking about the bird.
Oh,
He said the name of the.
it's so this bird here is represented by these graphemes, the nasalized velar trio and this k sound, right? Or ch in so some people say ak. That's kind of like the Egyptological speech, but it's more closer to rak or retch, or however you want to, that the pronunciation is valid. Just know that this bird is represented by these two graphemes, and that this, in fact, is the determinative, the classifier. All right, and that classifier has its own word. So you don't read the classifier. You don't read this as ak shepesh. It's just ak, but on its own, it is represented by shapes, or how we say shapes or shapesi. So we looked up some shapes words, and we said, it doesn't seem like it's a statue or likeness, but that still could be a possibility. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. And then, but it doesn't seem like there's a tomb or chapel, because normally when it's something like that, you would see an additional. Your connection is very bad.
It sounds like a robot.
Hey, your connection is very bad, and you're breaking up.
Spirit would fly off. That's not part of your spirit. What is fly off?
If you can hear me, your connection is very, very bad. Okay.
He in and out like a
yeah. Hey, you're Try
too
leaving.
many chapel.
Try leaving and coming back in because your connection is bad. We can't hear you. All right. So,
But it sounded like he was trying to make some kind of connect from what I could hear. Like he was trying. He said something about the chapel, like that he was talking about. So
yeah,
your spirit. I don't know. We had to let him get back and explain, expand further on that because I don't know. But I don't know if he's saying that. I don't agree with him.
Yeah. Well, continuing, we said no to the libation vase because normally, if it was a kind of vase, they would put a picture of a vase or a vase or some kind of picture or something. But the idea that it is possibly something dealing with nobility, elegance, richness, to be exalted, reverence, to be equipped magnificently, a noblewoman, or a nobleman, favorite, someone who is eminent and powerful, splendid. That seems to be a reasonable interpretation of the term, even though we don't have any text and we don't have any words. Any definition that was given earlier. So, given that our, our or ak here corresponds to L, N, G in isiZulu, we would go through the same process in isiZulu to see what term may, in fact, align with what we were able to see, based upon the determinative, even though we're not arguing that the determinatives and the words used for it are cognate. But let's look at these words here. Ilunga, Amalunga, a member or an official. Anybody?
I'd check that one.
I would throw that. Yep, I would throw that in the container as a possibility.
All righty. Then we have Ilunga, Amalunga again, limb, joint of the bones.
No,
No.
exclusion.
Yeah, I eliminate that.
Lunga, to get in order, to get correct, to get fit, to get prepared, get ready.
I would eliminate that one.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I would
eliminate
eliminate
that
that
one
one.
I would say,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sister Sean.
I said I would say no.
All righty. Jehuti still there?
But see, the way that, how in the when we were younger we had we played hot or cold.
Yeah.
So I would have a range. So I would leave it on the outside, but right there a little bit, to get in order one a little bit close. Like I would have to put these in ranges.
Yes.
And do it that way.
I agree. I agree with
a white person, is that does that look like?
I would say no.
We have linga, to hang or dangle or swing. Does it look like he's hanging or dangling?
Nope.
Or
That would
swinging?
be excluded, and then on the far end of exclusion.
Alrighty, and then attempt, linga, attempt, tried, or to tempt, to test. Does that sound like
excluded?
No.
Remember that L can become D as well, and so we have donga, udonga, izindonga. Wall. Does it look like a wall is being built?
No.
Definitely excluded. Not even on the register.
Dinga in terms of a need or require.
No.
No.
Dinga to be homeless. Does the like a homeless brother sitting on the chair?
No.
No.
No. Okay. Dingo, must or necessity or need or requirement.
No.
All right. So it doesn't look like, first and foremost, that it itself is a verb, right? just
Right.
like the other one, there doesn't appear to be any indication that a verb is the word that we're looking at. Not necessarily that it
No.
wouldn't correspond with a verb, but just to keep that in mind. And then we have Mulungu, a blessed ancestral spirit.
I'll check that one.
Maybe.
That one's probably the hottest in my range from hot to cold. That'd be the hottest one.
All righty. So we have
number one and the last one.
So Ilunga, member and official, or Mulungu, blessed ancestral spirit, with Mulungu being the number one, and then Lunga to get in order, get correct, get fit. That's
number 3.
Not in the bark park. It's like right outside.
Yeah.
Right, number 3. Yes, I agree with that.
It's Chris Browning. How you outside of the club? You can't even get in. That's what's going on with that word. Right. All right.
Right.
So
that's in line.
As is, the case, is Ak is deceased ancestor, and a variant of it, because it means revered one, with the semi-vowel E or Yi, and then M prefixes on the root. It just means a revered one. So it would make sense, given, to be noble, to be esteemed, to be exalted, reverence, right? So this grapheme here is being used to let you know that it's not just a dead person, it's someone who is exalted, someone who is revered, right? And and someone of noble means. So for isiZulu, you would say Mulungu, a blessed ancestral spirit. So you can see how, even with the meaning given and or reading it in a sentence, we can get a rough idea based upon the classifiers that are attached, if a classifier is attached, right? And so we looked and we voted. We said Mulungu was more likely it, and it come to find out that is exactly the case here, right? And then when we look at the word Ak itself, there's some it corresponds in many cases with a few of these definitions that we see here. But Ak itself means successful, right, glorious, splendid, excellent, spirit, the spirit state, effective spirit, transfiguration, to be glorified, to be blessed, to be holy. And just Aku itself, spirits to see. So we see in this form here, we see a woman. What is it, a woman? No, it's a dude. He's not sitting in a chair, but he's still holding this emblem of nobility in his hand, right? So that word Mulungu, blessed ancestral spirit, is also in the Vandao language, another Bantu language, and others you'll see it, the kind of effective or equipped spirit. But there's something here that I want y'all to kind of grasp. So this is from Dr. Malana Karenga's text, Ma'at, The Moral Idea on Ancient Egypt, where he got his second PhD off of this text. And hold on one second. I'm going to be right back. And just give me 2 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to play this.
I don't think he playing nothing. Better just speak.
I can hear it.
Sorry, had to find a cord, or this laptop would have shut off because somebody didn't charge. So we are good now. Alrighty, y'all still there?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty,
Indeed.
alrighty. So as I was saying, Milana Karenga's text Ma'at, the Moral Idea on Ancient Egypt, which was the book form of his second PhD dissertation on the same topic. And he mentioned something here that is that we can prove, which we're going to do in just a second. So he says, although ak, so that's that same word that we've been looking at, in ancient Egyptian means, in one sense, fitting, appropriate, it can also be translated as ma'at, as can all 7 cardinal virtues. But if one word can sum up these virtues, it is righteousness or rightness. Rightness in the divine, social, and natural spheres. Thus, to exist and act ethically is to respond in a fitting manner to others as well as to the world in which we are located in. So he's saying here that you can translate actually the word ak as ma'at, as one, is fitting and appropriate, but it has to deal with this notion of righteousness or rightness, right? And then he goes on to say, such an embracing ethic or concept of rightness is further defined by the word ak itself and its implications. It means effective, proper, fitting, but also agreeable, good, beneficial, excellent, right, glorious, and sacred. Several things are worth noting here. First, the fitting is at the same time the right and the good. This recalls Niebuhr's, if I'm saying that correctly, aspiration to combine in one indicative imperative concept and practice the teleological emphasis on achievement of the good and the deontological stress on doing what is right. Thus, in the book of Keti, Mary Kara is instructed that righteousness is fitting for a ruler. And Ptah-hotep says, Ma'at is ak. Therefore, fitting, valuable, and appropriate. It endures. It is effective. Again, righteousness is fitting, and fittingness is righteous, effective, and enduring. I say all that to say that when we're talking about Ma'at, truth, justice, straightness, balance, and order, it also corresponds into the Bantu languages in this way. So the M corresponds to N, which originally was an M, the Mu. In this case, because we're dealing with Kikongo, so the Mu prefix that we saw in Chiluba has now become in Kikongo, right? But they still have Mu as well. So it's just kind of 2 variants of the same grammatical morpheme. So we see in this variation here, barech, eyebrow, plume, which is cognate with Kikongo and Linga, hair. We say ma for salt water or water, and langu, water. Barat, warawu, or mawu, if you want to say it that way, wood, board, plank. And then remember our word from earlier in Longwa, a tree yielding very good timber for plank, right? Then we have this combination here, Ra'at Ma'awu, right line. And then we have in Kikongo and Longa, line, row, file, a swarm of driver ants on the march, a troop, swarm, train of people filing along, right? So we're seeing this pattern where ancient Egyptian M corresponds to Kikongo N, and the nasalized Vular Trill corresponds to the L, and they don't know what this sound is. And it actually kind of corresponds to several sounds even within, because this could be a Z, this could be a D, or it could be like a H type sound. Because of course they like to compare it to what do you call it, Semitic all the time. But that sound here corresponds to ng in Kikongo. And so we see that these correspondences are regular. And so when we talk about Ma'at in Kikongo, you can just say Lunga to be accurate, right, to be exact, perfect. And then in Lungu, justification, the state of being just, righteousness, blameless, completeness, right? Now, why is this important? Because remember that same consonant sequence that we saw in isiZulu that is correspondent with the Ach is correspondent with the Ma'at form. And so remember that word here, Lunga, to get in order, to get correct, to get fit, to get prepared, to get ready. This is actually the root of the word Ach. And this is why, the Ach, successful, right, glorious, splendid, excellent. All of these are in the semantic spheres of to be in order, and things that are in order is good and excellent and done well and equipped and fit. And it's like, so it's when because Malana Karanga, not only because he's citing, actual text like the Ptah-hotep text where it says Ma'at is Ak, but Ma'at is Ak is he's comparing this on the more so on a conceptual level. But the reason why Ma'at and Ak correspond conceptually well, because they're the same word, they're just different variants of the same word, right? And so when you're talking about a particular blessed spirit or whatnot, you're talking about one that is righteous, glorious, one that is esteemed, one who put order in the world while they were living, right? They're not just any old people. These are successful people who were fit. And so when it comes to a particular noble or something like that, who was in that particular was a member of nobility or not, this is how you can get the same root, meaning a member or an official. So notice there's a difference here, Lunga, and then there's a prefix here, Ilunga, Amalunga. So you see how these words build on each other? And so that same root with the last vowel changing because of the mu prefix becomes the blessed ancestral spirit. And this is what you see in ancient Egyptian. And the variant of that is, how we say Ma'at. That's why an Ak is someone who has been, after the judgment scene, has been declared Mahiru, true of voice, right? All these different words built off of the same roots. And so, that word Malungu that you saw here, that is in isiZulu and Vandal, is a word meaning blessed ancestral spirit. In other languages, It is the word for God itself. So you can consider God Ma'at or a great Ak. Either they're the same word. These are just dialectical variants of the same word, right? And so these are the variants for many of the Bantu languages for a word for God. Mulungu and Yao and Lungu. And Sina has Mulungu, Yao has Inlungu. Mokoa, and this is where my maternal ancestors come from. This group here, they say Imluku. But in Kikuyu, they say Murungu. And Guryama, Mulungu. In Rwanda, it's Nyamurungu. Right? So you can see how, like in this dialect variant, they say Mluku, while in these, they say Mlungu or Mulungu. Right? So if they were all to meet up in for some reason a drought happened and then they found all themselves in one area, they would have different pronunciations of the same deity. And if you wrote it in the script, it would look like they're different words. But this is Dr. Rhonda M. Gonzalez, and she is a historian and a linguist originally out of California. And I believe she's still in San Antonio, but I think she may have moved back, her and her husband and child, to California. Mexican-American woman. And I know her personally. And she wrote a text. Matter of fact, her and one of my other teachers, Dr. Karen Kleiman, they're like best friends. They're besties. And she graduated from UCLA and studied under Christopher Ehret, same as Dr. Karen Kleiman. And so she wrote a text called Societies, Religion, and History, Central East Tanzanians and the World They Created, 200 BCE to 1800 CE, right? And there's a printed version of this book, but you can also read it online at a website. So you just put it in and go to chapter 3, and she's going to say something here. She's going to say, presuming this is accurate, by the time Proto-Ruvu is Proto-Ruvu is, of course, is a language family, and it gave birth to some other variants of the Bantu languages in East Africa. So the Ruvu speech communities emerged in the middle of the first millennium CE. Mulungu, both the term and concept, was already at least 1,000 years old. To glean what meaning Mulungu likely carried in those earlier period languages, return to its etymological root. It derives from a Proto-Bantu verb that loosely meant to become fitting, straight, or right. Let's go back to Karanga. What does he say about Ak itself? It means effective, proper, fitting, right. Ma'at is Ak, fitting, valuable, appropriate, and endures, it is effective. So you got to understand all these terms are the same, right? So such an underlying verb intimates that Mulungu in all probability conveyed the idea of a force responsible for ordering things in a right and good way, right? And then, it continues on. But the purpose of this is to show that you get confirmations in various different ways, and that the comparisons may shed light even on the actual ancient Egyptian itself, because normal Egyptologists would not be able to connect linguistically Ak and the word Ma'at. But we're able to do that by the comparative method and associating this with Bantu, right? And so given what we have shown thus far, if we were to look for the cognate of the word Kemet, besides Brother Wujawu, what would be the process that we would go to solve this riddle if we weren't given any information in terms of its context, meaning the sentences in which it is in, or the definition, or provided a definition? What would be, what would we first have to do? But we do know the consonants for which the glyphs represent, right? So, y'all, given our exercise today, what would y'all say?
You can look at the determinative and and go based off. Let that guide you.
Say it again.
I say we go off the determinative, which here would be the district, norm, or metropolitan, and the 049 one. Keep that one in consideration, which is a district or a known.
Right. Anybody else? What would you look at, and how would you go solving the problem of what the meaning of this term is?
Well, for me, it would be in the first set down there, the district, Nome, or necropolis, because we know that that's a place.
Right. So what you're saying is that given the determinatives that we see here, we automatically know that it is a place, because these determinatives, these graphemes, deal with places, right? And so we see the examples in the word district, nome, necropolis, and we see that these are interchangeable. That N23 irrigated land glyph and the 049 glyph, right? And then we have this other one here, which is an N36, which is a water canal. In many respects, it's just a variant of this, right? So you correctly, said, okay, let's first look at the classifiers. Okay, so then we kind of get an assessment. We say, okay, it has to involve some kind of spacing, or at minimum, it has to deal with some kind of land. Why? Because this is irrigated land. This is a water canal. This is, now some people would say it's a town. In the Egyptological literature, it says a town crossroads, but that has been challenged by a number of scholars, including myself. And I've come to the conclusion, and so has at least another scholar, that this is actually two glyphs, these glyphs right here, together, posed together in a kind of a sapat, which is, and I don't have the other variation on here, I don't know why, but this is from an old slide. But this in turn is the same thing. It's irrigated land. But it's come to, because it's in the circle, it's come to define, it's saying it's in irrigated land, a population center, right? Like there's a definite border, relating to the space. So we've already established that. So then what would be our next steps?
We don't got no sentences to look at. We just off what we have. We already classified. Looked at the classifier. You got the consonants. I don't know right there. From right there.
You've been doing it the whole show.
Just continue using context.
So we've let's go back. So when we were presented with, for example, like this. Let's assume we didn't have this, but we know for a fact it's HM. We know that the ancient Egyptian language has a number of words that have this consonant in sequence. And it's the same thing in ancient Egyptian. It's the same thing with the KM. So if we know that there are homographs for KM, other than this variant that we're seeing here, what we do now is that we go and look at the other KM consonant sequent words in the ancient Egyptian language, and then we compare those with cognate forms or potential cognate forms in the secondary language. Because once we're able to do that, then we can make a prediction on how the form of the cognate is going to be in the language. So if we see this consonant, these three consonants in sequence, and they're matching up consistently in Kikongo with N, L, N, G, if I give out the word ma'at, in terms of righteousness, justice, etc., what form do I expect it to be in Kikongo? I'm asking the panel.
With the L and G?
Exactly, with the N, L, N, and G, right? Or at least the L, N, G, because that is the root. And we've determined that the M is a prefix based upon the word. So y'all would just have to know a little bit about Kikongo. But believe me, that these are prefixes, and these are prefixes as well that may have been fossilized in Egyptian. So if we see the consonants in sequence here, and they all match up with other words, because hair is not the same as salt water. Salt water is not the same as wood. A right line is not the same as an eyebrow, which is curved. So these are all different words. So you can't say that these are built off of the same root. And we see that in the correspondences in Kikongo. So when we see these consonants in sequence, we expect in Kikongo for to correspond respectively N, L, and then NG is the consonant skeleton. And then we expect various different vowels, just like we do here. In Linge is not the same as in Langu and in Longwa, right? Even though this in Longa has the same, same initial vowel. But this wa here, this G is rounded, and that's thus explains the W here, the ngwa. So it's the correspondences tells us a lot, especially when we're looking at the vowels in terms of the differences between the roots. So when we are faced with a situation like this, where the dominant forms, these are the dominant forms. You have other forms of Kemet, the place name, that refer to or just Kemet that may have a different determinative, like the seated man and woman glyph. But that is only in one papyrus. There's only one example of that in ancient Egypt's 3,000 plus year history. So what did we say about our our frequency? 1 is a mistake. 2 is coincidence. 3 is a pattern. And so these are the dominant forms, and the most dominant form is going to be Kemet with the 049. But you have several texts with these, so we know it's not coincidence or an accident. There's a pattern with these, but they still do not compare in number to the forms that you find with the 049 glyph, right? So we do what we always did, and you look for the homographs in the language, and then you look for the correspondences in your target language. And so we can go, each one line for line. You have this word Congo, win or goal. You have Kim, which is a word for service, goal, of course, completion, and also to pay. You have Nkanga, a guinea fowl. You have Sakim, a kind of fowl. Now, some will say it means a black bird. Most birds are black or gray, unless it's just like one of them elaborate birds, like what's that big blue bird? With the elaborate tail.
Peacock.
Peacock, like unless it's like an exotic bird. Most birds are like brown, black, or gray. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this word here comes from Kim Black. It's a possibility though. But Sukim, a kind of fowl. And note that this isn't a verb, so this is not a causative S. And with my correspondences, I show you that this S corresponds to what we transliterate as lowercase a for those of you who read and write Meta Nature or are studying it. This is a lost nominal prefix in the language. So this is a fossilized term. So you have kunga, moan, grunt, groan. You have kim, groan, lament. M, to lament. You also have in demonic kimi, which means to cry out, like with a belch, may possibly in pain, but it's given as kimi, to cry out. Then you have nkongi, a long neck calabash, and we don't have calabashes for the most part here in the United States because we have cups, but traditionally you would have these plants that were shaped kind of like vases or whatnot, that they would store water and other liquids in, and later on they begin to make even pottery in those shapes. And so it corresponds to kimit here, a jar, a vessel. Then you have kwanga, to cut, to fell, to chop, saw, scratch, and then ikim, to tear, meaning to rip. And then you have konga, to pluck, gather large fruit. And notice this form here, dotted HW, to gather crops, to harvest. And I don't show it on this slide, but internally, KM in Egyptian corresponds to other forms provided by dotted HM and then dotted HW. And remember that we said earlier, M and W interchange and correspond with each other in the language. And so this is why we're able to say that the word Kemet itself is cognate with the word Congo, because Congo has to deal with like a rainforest, right? Or a big bush foresty area. And it coincides with our argument that Kemet has to refer to a land with an abundance of grass and water. And this is an actual place in Congo called Chikongo. And there's an actual place in Congo called Chikam. And these are locations in Congo. And this Chi corresponds to ancient Egyptian T, in the way that in Chikam, the Chi corresponds, the Chi prefix corresponds to the T suffix in ancient Egyptian. But this is the way that you would do it. And there are other tests that you can do, but you would follow that same process. And so this is why the determinatives are critical and key. And you will see others who are in opposition try to avoid these in a discussion and then try to avoid the linguistics because the linguistics do not match their assumptions. And so always demonstration beats conversation. And I end with Inqua Ngolo Vimpi. And are there any questions and or comments from the panel?
No, it was a great exercise, though. I always wanted to see how you went about the process, and we got to do it live. So it's dope.
Yeah.
So could you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, could you put that last slide back up?
The
Well,
very, very last or the one with the words?
That one, the one with the words.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is a question.
Go ahead.
So far, okay. So you asked the question prior to this, what would be the process that we take? And so for the whole show, we've been actually doing the process. And so you would set up the sound meaning correspondences, the regularity of it, and then you would definitely have to pay attention to the classifiers, which was the exercises that we've gone through. So here at this slide,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So at this slide, this sets up the regularity of the sound meaning correspondences so that you can determine the predictability of what forms you would see in the compared language. So I see on the right hand side you have a K to K, and then the but you have Kikongo first, so it's Kikongo K to Chicam K, Kikongo NG to Chicam M, et cetera, et cetera. So as we did earlier, we would look for those forms in Kikongo in order to do any predictions. And so do you have any, well, I don't know if you have any readily, but do you have any to show further in terms of the predictions like we did in the other exercises?
Well, as far as Kemet is concerned?
No, well, with this one, just with the correspondences.
I'm not quite sure what you mean outside of the ones that I've done already.
Yeah. Okay. So, like for example, when if you go back to the previous, the one we did as an exercise.
Okay.
Before the Kemet one, it was
this one.
Okay. So on this one, you didn't give the meaning or context or anything, and then the next slide. Let me see what the next slide is. Where you had the comparisons. When you set up the sound.
So this one was a little different. So remember, let's go back to the first one. So in the ones before, just so I can get y'all into the practice of doing it, I gave y'all the meanings of the hieroglyphs or the form given by the hieroglyphs here, right? And then of course, given our correspondences beforehand, we would predict that whatever word that I gave you with a chicom.hm, we can predict that the root in the Yoruba form is going to be TN. So in that same way, when I said, okay, well, let's prove it, I gave you .hm drive back repel. So if there is a cognate, we can expect in the Yoruba language for it to have a TN consonant sequence. And that's exactly what would happen here. And so to throw a monkey wrench into the equation, that's when I gave you the consonant sequences here. We established the pattern. So ZN or ZNN corresponds to SNG or KNG, but more would have to be shown to prove this case here. But this is an irregularity, but it's one that makes sense because we know that these are all palatalized forms, but this, for some reason, this variant didn't palatalize. So is it a loan word? We don't know. But that's the word that shows up in the dictionary, at least the ones that I have. Right. So if I was to give you another word with ZN as the root, you would expect it to either be SNG, SHNG, if that S is followed by an I, or KNG in Chiluba. So I gave you a word ZN or ZNN, and then but I didn't give you the meaning. So dang, how do we solve this riddle? So I wanted to give you two different variations on how you would get close. So one, of course, is reading the actual text and deducing based upon the environment, right? You can always do that. But and then, so we can so that was just to give us a guess. So when we went into the Chiluba language and we guessed that it was a warrior or a soldier, is there a word in Chiluba that has that meaning that fits? Sure enough, there is. Jisonga, warrior. Right? So, but in this case, I still gave you at the end the word, right? Or at least its meaning. But in this case here, we set up the sound correspondences for Ak, but I didn't give you the word and I didn't give you the textual context. We're going strictly off of the grapheme itself. And so we're asking here, in given our isiZulu correspondences, and we have a guess here, we have this word Ak. It should correspond to LNG in isiZulu. So, we went about this actually two ways. So we looked at it and tried to determine what was going on with this glyph. And Brother Chavez and Brother Jehuti was like, this is someone of elegance, someone of importance, of eminence, of power, of nobility, right? That's just looking at the glyphs. That's not looking at, any definitions. And so we went a roundabout way. We looked at the definition of this, since we know that this glyph here can represent a word by itself, and we did a process of elimination. Or we could have actually went to isiZulu first. So if we guessed off the bat that this has to do with some, of importance, of eminence, or something like that, can we find such and such in the isiZulu language, right? And we boiled it down to two and a possible, right? Like this is a game of spades. And then we came to find out that, in the final analysis, yes, it does mean deceased ancestral spirit, but not just any, it's a blessed ancestral spirit. That's how it is in the dictionary entry that I have. But it's equivalent to like an Orisha, a Netaru. It's not just any dead person. It's someone who has made their name on earth while living, who was done great. They're the great ancestors. So, your cousin Darnell, may have passed away, and he, of course, is loved by his immediate family. But your cousin Darnell is not the same as Fannie Lou Hamer, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as Malcolm X. Those would be Aku, or Orisha, or Netter. Y'all get what I'm saying? So it's a special, and it's implied here by the very determinative itself. It's not just any dead person. It's someone of great prestige and power and eminence and influence. And so we were able to determine that by looking at the hieroglyphs, and then we found the correspondence in isiZulu. And so it would be the same regardless, even with this word Kemet here. And so we look at the hieroglyphs, we see that it has to deal with land and spaces, and that these are the dominant forms. And so when we start looking in the languages, we first set up our sound correspondences with the shared homonyms or homographs, and then we go on and we find in Kikongo, for example, the word that has the consonant sequence that was established by the regular sound meaning experimental set here. And we come to find out it is the very word Congo itself that has to deal with a again, like a rainforest, a heavily vegetated place. And in some languages, it even doubles as the word for God itself.
And there you have it.
And that's the process on how you do it. It's not that complicated, and you do this several times over to find its various meanings. You even do this internally, right? And so I mean, that's exactly what we did, for example, with with Kiduru, right? We looked at the shared consonants, the forms here, and we looked at them in Sumerian, and we looked at them also in Chiluba, and these other forms, they look different, but believe me, because it's a later language in terms of Chiluba, it has undergone more sound change than, of course, ancient Egyptian and Sumerian, but these are contemporary. So we see consistently when Sumerian has D in the first consonant position, Chicam has K. And when Sumerian has N or L or R, these are home organic sounds. And this anomaly here with the B, which isn't an anomaly because I did other tables, and it shows up here. It corresponds to M in the second consonant position. And I have this here. I don't count this because that pile of burning coals, it doesn't appear to be supported in the language of ancient Egyptian. But the DR, and there's other examples. This is all I can fit on this that is easily read here, where the R and the L in the second consonant position corresponds to M. And so I do it with another set of correspondences, this time with TR or TL, because in Sumerian, D and T interchange and R and L interchange, but they all still correspond predictably with the forms that you see here. And that's why when I was able to establish the sound correspondences, Sumerian D with Egyptian K, Sumerian R in second consonant position with Egyptian M, that's when we were able to establish Kiduru, damp ground, irrigable land. Why? Because this is exactly what you see here. Irrigable land, irrigable land, irrigable land. It is consistent. So the meaning that we found with this form here it not only matches because it matches in form, but it also matches the determinatives. And as I said in previously, our detractors try to always avoid the determinatives. And you can't, because whatever meaning that you propose in terms of the possible correspondence in the second language, if the main word in the Egyptian language as written down is provided with determinatives or classifiers, the meaning of the word has to fit in alignment with the determinatives. That's why they have the determinatives there, right? And so when I do Chicom and Chiluba again, this time with the ND, we have Chiluba KM with Chicom, Egyptian KM consonant sequence, with Chiluba KND consonant sequence. Remember that ultimately this is an L. So to tear out, Ekim, Kanda, separate. Kim, finish, complete. Kanda, complete, whole, perfect, exact. Kimiyet, a book of wisdom. Mukanda, book, paper, letter. Ekim, shield, protection. Kanda, to prevent, prohibit. And there's also a Kim meaning to hinder, to block. And when you put the I instrument prefix on that root, it becomes the word for shield and protection. That's why it corresponds to Kanda, prevent, prohibit, refuse, permission. Kandika, defend, ban. Mukandu, defense, prohibit. And then, of course, we have Kemet, Egypt, the country, irrigated land, and Chi and Kanda, piece of land, field, part of a field that's been plowed in a day. In other words, farmland. And this idea that end and m, correspond, we see that even in one language, Shango. So Mba corresponds to Inda, Mbe, Ni, Indi, other, Mbella, order, ordinance, India, law, Ba, similar, India, homonym, right? Like there's linguistic reasons and consequences that is easy to explain for these forms. So when we defined the word Kemet, we said that it corresponds to the Herero language, Nganda, a village, or properly a new pasturage with an abundance of grass and water. And here's the dictionary entry and where you can find this meaning, because we did this based upon the regular sound meaning correspondences of the related languages. So we're not throwing stuff out of the wind. And so what the importance of this is more so to show you what it means when we say that certain scholars have not done the work. So for anyone who claims that the scholars have done the work, tell them to pull up the document, book or journal article, where they went through these steps like we did to confirm that Kemet means black land or black people. I double dog dare you. Demonstration beats conversation each and every time. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had a question that may offer some clarity. Can you explain? Okay, so etymology is the term that you've been using. So can you explain the other subfields or sub endeavors that are also involved with etymology? Because I think that there's some misunderstanding on what's involved with etymology itself.
Well, etymology itself is more so the subfield of historical comparative linguistics. And so when you have linguistics, it is just a broad label that incorporates uh, like sociolinguistics, historical linguistics, comparative linguistics, and then there's a subfield that combines those two. We call it historical comparative linguistics. And the subfield of historical comparative linguistics is etymology. And so you can't get to the etymology of a word without the historical comparative process. Right? You have to be able to compare two or more languages and establish the sound laws between the languages itself. And matter of fact, if I can
That was more or
find
less
this slide.
the I guess that's more or less the question. Could you avoid the historical comparative method
No,
and
and
deal with etymology on this
no,
level? All right,
no.
that's pretty much the better
Matter of
question.
fact, and because we always have sources, let me. So remember, so now I'm going to pull up my original ASCAC conference slideshow, and from 2019, right? And remember, I'm informing everyone about the research domain. And I stated in this slide, since we are trying to understand the meaning and etymology of the word Kemet, we thus have entered the domain of linguistics and must use the tools of linguistics to answer the question. Right? And the whole war and weapons is a particular context in which I said it, right? So I cite this individual here. So there's a text called The Continuum Companion to Historical Linguistics. And Thomas Critch wrote a chapter on etymology. That's the whole focus of the chapter. So he says, and just a little background, he was arguing that the idea of etymology originates with the Greeks, and more specifically of Socrates. And so, but he's given the difference between how etymology is done today versus when it first started with Socrates. So he says the big difference between Socrates' approach and a modern etymology is that nowadays one tries to argue systematically in all strata, in phonology, in morphology, and in semantics. And that was the exercise that the exercises that I had y'all do throughout this program, and also extra linguistically. So remember, the phonology and morphology and semantics, pragmatics, those are all the linguistic criteria. So now we're going outside of linguistics, and we're going into, he says, philology and culture, and one also takes into account historical developments. If one wants to be a productive and successful expert in etymology, one has to thoroughly study all the areas mentioned, right? So we dealt with primarily in our exercise phonology, morphology, semantics, and pragmatics, the linguistics, and we dealt with philology. So that's when we went back into the text and we read the context for which the word existed, and then we came to a conclusion based on that. So that's where philology comes in. But that philology is not linguistics. And any basic course that you take on linguistics, they will emphasize that. Philology, that means the reading of text, is not linguistics. So you can't just read text and expect to get to a linguistic etymological conclusion. That was the folly of basically everyone in this discussion, outside of ourselves, but more so especially Dr. Mario Beatty at the 2019 conference, right? So there's 6 areas of focus: phonology, morphology, semantics, pragmatics, philology, culture, and history. And so this is where we get to your question, Brother Ujamaa. He continues. In the 19th and 20th century, starting with Jacob Grimm, Franz Bopp, and Rasmus Rask, the comparative method, based on strict morphological and phonological and lexical comparison, was developed. The most important output of this research was the discovery of sound laws, which mediate between cognate languages and their respective older stages and their common predecessors. This research, in turn, that means etymology, this research in turn relies on, or in terms of the comparative method, in turn relies on good etymologies of words that exemplify the sound laws and the regularities of the word's formation. Right? So you're not going to be able to ultimately get to the etymology of words without doing the historical comparative method procedures, which requires you to establish the sound laws. So when we were looking at and establishing, for example, let me go. Yeah, that's a good one. So when we talked about, and we were doing this process here, this was establishing the sound laws, the correspondences here. So I already knew that him, drive, back, and repel was going to have a TN consonant sequence because we established this first. Then we went to look for the cognate for our main test here. And that's how we got Tanu, to cast out, to eject. Right? There's a process, and people are trying to come to the conclusion for arguments without doing the work. And they think that they're just, you reading the Egyptian text allows for you to come to an etymological conclusion, and you cannot do that. That's not how this is done. So the reason for these exercises and the reason why I had or requested that y'all participate is so you can go through the process and see yourself how this is. So now when you're reading arguments and they claim that they have the etymology for the root kemet or any other word in the ancient Egyptian language, you'll be able to say, well, where's your proof? Where's the work? And if somebody says, well, it's in a dictionary is does not show the work. Give me the article, give me the book where the work was done to verify the argument that was made in a dictionary.
That was going to be my final question. Because it sounds like this process, whenever there's a word in question and we have reason to believe that there's some kind of question with these ancient Egyptian words in the multiple dictionaries, it seems like this is the process that we would have to take to verify. Now, obviously, there's like thousands upon thousands of entries in these dictionaries, and so we wouldn't just sit there and start at the letter A and then go and do this for every word. But in instances where there's some obscurity, there's some doubts, some questions, it seems like this would be the process to take to actually verify or falsify these dictionary entries. And so that would be my last question. Would that be the case? And it sounds like you kind of answered it already.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. It's not a matter of that we think that every single entry in any of the Egyptological dictionaries are in fact wrong. But there are occasions where there's debate on the meaning of an entry. And since, everybody is quote unquote qualified to make the to make the an argument, then we have no other choice but to do the work ourselves. So what I'm trying to bestow upon you all is that, this is the way that you check whether the quote unquote experts, have done the work. So you notice every single time that we request that we see the work that the so-called experts have done, everybody gets all up in upset and in their feelings and do everything except provide us with the work. So think about this for a second. If the work had been done by for example, Shekanta Diop or Theophilo Benga, don't you think they would have presented that at the 2019 ASCAC conference?
Makes sense if it was done. It makes sense to me.
If the work had been done on this question by a European scholar, don't you think they would have pulled it out by now? As long as we've been going at this, they've had all these years and all this time to provide us with the source material where the work was actually done. But not one person has provided that information. Why? Why do they go around the question instead of dealing directly with it or saying to themselves, or excuse me, saying to us publicly that I don't know? Right? So this is why we request this information, because I'm teaching y'all how to recognize if the work had been done. You'll be able to see and examine it for yourself. This kind of work doesn't depend on the prestige of the presenter, of the scholar. Who cares if they're a master teacher or not? Did the master teacher do the work and answer the question?
Another
Who
question.
cares? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Now, were you done? I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, another question. So, in these exercises, which was brilliant, by the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've taken, like, if you minus the breaks and everything like that, we've been here 3 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you just for sake of argument just subtract an hour and just say this was 2 hours, would you say that you can do what you just did within a 15-minute lecture? Would it have the same effect and stick and make its points within 15 minutes?
No, you wouldn't have been able to cover, and that's even with an audience full of experts, because there's certain fundamental other questions that you have to answer and show and demonstrate. This is why we don't rely on presentations. We write it down, because a presentation is only supposed to be a summary of your work, your analysis. Your presentation is not the analysis, which is why you can never win the argument from a YouTube presentation or even a presentation at a scholastic conference. You simply have to teed it out and put it out there for the community to examine. And the opposition is even afraid to do that, because it's easy to turn a camera on, and start talking, but it takes focus and organization and time to put those thoughts together and to make a coherent argument based upon all the evidence, and to present that evidence to the public for scrutiny. And there's just not too many people who are willing to do that, unfortunately.
All right. Sounds like a winner.
But and I'm paying too much. It doesn't look like there's really. I'll just ask formally instead of trying to scroll up. I'll set out a few minutes to answer any questions that are in the chat room. live. And if there's no questions from there, then I'll just end this because, as you said, it's already 10 minutes after 3. Excuse me, not 10 minutes after 3, but 10 minutes, 3 hours and 10 minutes. This show has, been going on. But even before then. So if you have any questions in the chat, please type it in the chat, and I will respond to it now. But while I'm waiting for the time lapse to happen, I just want to thank each and every one of you who joined the panel and participated. So peace and love to Brother Chavez, to Sister Sean Green, to Lionel, who was on earlier, to Ankoma, the Jed, even though your internet was bootleg for today. Brother Wujawu, and who am I missing? Brother Jehuti, who was on earlier for participating in this class. And so, and I saw a few of y'all participating even in the chat, answering the questions along with the panel. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation. And so still waiting to see if there is any questions. Let me see.
Imat, I believe, has a question.
42 Tribe says, I can fit this entire video into one meme. Dare me. Sister Miket says, that was a very clear and concise. Thank you. You're welcome. Sister Mika said that she enjoyed it. And thank you for watching and participating as well. And so Mat says, what's the difference between the feminine T and the corresponding, the T corresponding to Bantu Chi? And it's a simple answer, but it's complex at the same time. I will just say this, that the feminine T emerged initially from a categorization in the languages of classing things as masculine and feminine, like cattle, like human beings, and alike. And then it became associated just kind of with things that may appear within the culture as masculine and things that appear within the culture as feminine, right? But nowadays, when you talk about gender in linguistics, they're really just associated with any morpheme that initiates concord in a sentence, right? So like if, for example, if I was to say the New York Knicks basketball team did something, and then I said, and they that they is there. It's the concorded response. Like you have to use they because we're referring to the New York Knicks as a collective team, but it's a kind of a pluralizing. So when we use the personal pronoun, we use they when we do it, right? So that's one form of concord. In Bantu and ancient Egyptian, for example, like if you do the concord, like if I used the famous, Ziet Kemet, for example. The Ziet is a word for, I believe, rams. But because it is in the feminine, when describing them as black rams or black sheep, I think it's more so sheep when it's in the feminine. The the natural Kim black has to be followed by a feminine T, right? So you would say Ziyet Kimet. And so the concord, the agreement of the adjective has to agree with the noun. And just like how the when we refer to the New York Knicks as a collective basketball team, the personal pronoun had to agree with the noun in terms of its usage, and either as the singular, plural, or other. So now, when it comes to Bantu, they have those systems, but those same types of concords, but they don't necessarily correspond to masculine and feminine. Now, there's many differences that you will see, but they're actually the same. The problem is that ancient Egyptian, they had several different types of T's, but many of them merged together, right? So like you have a T for the agent, you have a verbal suffix T, you have a T of place, you have the T of the abstract, right? There's different types of T's, but all those T's still they still initiate or invoke concord with, if like, for example, if it's adjectives on the noun, or if they're on the noun or whatnot, they require a certain response. And so they correspond the same way with chi or ki or she in Bantu. And so, like I said, yeah, it's a bit more complicated than how I'm explaining it. But in the examples that were given, this is why I try to make sure that I separate when someone says a feminine T versus a T that marks the place, right? Because even that T is a separate T, because a feminine T does not change the meaning in any way, shape, or form, right? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't add anything to the meaning. It doesn't transform it to another state of the word or nothing. It does nothing. But if I was to, it's just like if I say Yoruba land, now that word Yoruba land, the suffix land, tells you that it is the land or the place of the Yoruba. And so it doesn't change the meaning of the root. It just tells you now that this is associated with a place, right? In terms of, Yoruba land, or a, or a place that has nothing to do with a particular ethnic group, right? You could be talking about like let's just say some Tar Heels somewhere, the place of the Tar Heels, or like they're just these hills, right? You can have a ville or I don't know what other European suffixes for place that you may have, but it wouldn't change the meaning, but it lets you know that it is something different, that you're referring to a space, then you are more so referring to the root word itself. And these are just some kind of things that you have to keep in mind. But it's simple, but it's complex. And I don't want to get into demonyms, ethnonyms, and all that other kind of stuff, because that requires slides. You want to get hail and brimstone from the cosmos, bro. Nicole Green, thank you. This was so enlightening. I've never been on a panel before. Again, we appreciate you coming through and participating. And I know you was at work and then you was having some kind of other difficulties, but your presence, again, is always welcome. And, hopefully we can do more of these in the future. Comfort Oni says, if you can scroll back to the slide where Mulungu is, I would like to know if I can be, if I could be, Well, I guess she has to finish. Brother Chavez finna get something to eat. And yep. So exactly where a single morph represents, multiple morphs, or visible morph represents multiple morphs. So it's just like kind of like er in the English language. You have an agentive, and then you have one that that you would use for like comparison. So like, if I say so and so is bigger than someone else, the er attached to the word big is not the same as the er in the word teacher, from the verb to teach. So the er in the word teacher is it's a homonym, but it's the agentive. It's an agent. So a teacher, one who teaches. But that er is a suffix, looks in it and is pronounced exactly like the er that you would use for the comparison, right? So if I say that Black Panther is taller than Brother Asar, right? It's a comparison in that form. So these were what you would call the portmanteau. How you pronounce it? Portmanteau.
Yeah, I think it's French. Portmanteau. Portmanteau.
Yeah. All right. Has there been research on 26 English alphabet symbols correlating to the basic 26 symbols in the ancient Egyptian? Yes, there's a lot of work on that. Maybe we can do several shows on the Egyptian origin of the alphabet. But it went through matter of fact, most alphabets around the world originate from ancient Egyptian. And so that's an interesting, story itself. But our modern alphabet in English comes via the Canaanites, who then pass it on to the Greeks, who then pass it on to the Romans, who was the Latin. So that's why we call it the Latin script today. And of course, the English took it over, from there, and that's how we have the script itself. Cat, as a bonus for your understanding regarding question, check this. Okay. Quick question. On page 80 of Beginner's Guide to Meta Nature, the ak in the ak sound can also be pronounced as a lateral approximant, giving us the very Egyptian L sound. Yeah, that's within the range. Remember, you got to understand, like, in linguistics, you have this phenomenon called homoorganic sounds. And homoorganic sounds are sounds that are pronounced in the general area of the mouth. So when you say L as in Larry, or you say N as in Nancy, or you say T as in Terrence, or you say D as in Daryl, you notice that you place the tip of your tongue in the same general area, just right behind the teeth, on the front part of your mouth, behind your top teeth. And this is what we call it a pico sound, because the tip of your tongue touches that area there. But depending on the shape of the rest of your tongue, and if it's curled or if it bends here, this is how you get these different sounds, the T, D, L, N, and also the R sound, the R, R. Now we don't have that sound in English, so we have what we call a lateral approximant in our R sound, because our sound is really more so like a vowel, right? And so that explains why the nasalized uvular trill, the R, the trill, could be used for L, for especially for those languages that did not have the trill. So it's just like when Chinese people come to the United States and they're trying to pronounce all our words with L in it. It may be the reverse, but they replace it with R, like a rolling R. But I think yeah, it is the reverse. So when they try to say our R, they say L, I think. So yeah, so that's the sign there, the nasalized uvular trill, right? And so in different dialects and or just foreigners trying to pronounce those words, they'll try to pronounce it via the closest sound in their language, right? And that's exactly how that happens. And welcome back, Sister Green. And let me see. This is all right. I'm just reading the back chat question. So let me see. Did I miss something? Is that related to the L sounds in the Zulu words? I can only tell by the comparison, but I know that in the Zulu, they also have a trill R in their language. So it just really depends. He says, I heard somewhere that there used to be a triconsonant root structure in Bantu, just like in Semitic. Do you have any information on that? I don't think so. The evidence from what I've seen is that Bantu and all of the related languages started off with a consonant vowel root, and then it became to a consonant vowel open syllable root, and then some more changes happened to where there was consonant vowel consonant, but that's still a monosyllabic root, and there was a consonant vowel consonant vowel consonant vowel. But it wouldn't be necessarily the roots. They're just all prefixes and suffixes. And matter of fact, this is something that was discussed by Jean-Claude Mboli in his text, and this is how he reconstructs, the Negro Egyptian. But the Proto-Bantu forms were of the consonant vowel form that you see here. But there was another related group that had the consonant vowel, consonant vowel, consonant vowel. This is the group that emerges the three consonant root group. And there were some interactions between them and Bantu, and this is how you get pre-Proto-Semitic and Proto-Semitic. But even still, there's an article by Roger Blinch, and he asked the question, did Niger Congo have triconsonantal roots? And he makes some proposals and suggestions in that. And so you may want to review that text. But keep in mind, he's of the Greenberg school, and so keep that in mind. But he put forth that argument, and it's interesting because what he has shown in that would correspond for me to Mboli's Kikuki branch, right? Let me see. Okay. Do you think it's possible for an adult language learner to obtain the accent of the language? Yeah, if you spend enough time with natives, you're not going to get it just reading text uh, from a screen or in a book. You need to immerse yourself. So how you got your accent with your native language is because you were immersed in your family and your community speaking that language. So it's not going to be any different for you even as an adult. What has to happen, the best way for it to happen is for you to get kidnapped and stranded and left in that other country where you're forced to learn their language and just be there for a long time. But you got to be in the mix to really get it down packed to where they would swear that you was a native. But that takes time and immersion. Um, And Coma the Jed says or asks, when I asked for his opinion on your comparative linguistic work on Proto-Bantu to Ned, he claimed that you utilize a reconstruction model of Guthrie, which he says is non-scientific. First of all, nothing Ned ever says ever makes sense, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And it would take some time to explain why he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And Ned is one of those individuals who uses scientific jargon out of context, and he doesn't know what certain things mean. And uh, and that's all I can say at this point. Sasimi Cat, yes, there's an immersive language schools doing that. No speaking in anything but the language you're learning from day one at Travel Light. Exactly. She's laughing at something. And I don't see anything else. Um, Sister Green, do you have anything to say in closing?
No, just thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Brother Bujawu.
Now, this was an excellent demonstration, excellent exercise. I hope people have the patience to watch the whole thing and go through the exercise themselves, because this is very, very forward pushing, progress pushing type of exercise, so people can really get an understanding of what it means, as you said, what it means to show the work. And so this is excellent. That's it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, I thank each and every one of you for sharing your time and mental energy to follow this conversation, and for your feedback and for your questions. And so I intended to do this on Friday night, but I forgot that I have the Sheikh Anta Diop conference um, on that Saturday morning, and I'm the first presenter at 9 a.m. So I'll be taking that time to kind of look over my presentation and cut some things out and the like. And so for y'all and post it online, so y'all don't miss a beat, at least for my presentation. And I'll try to get some good photos and some other good video clips of the conference and post it when I can. So with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question, not now, but I was requested, me or you, it'd probably be more appropriate for you, to do a future show on kind of similar to what you showed earlier without the engagement of the exercise. But how does paramnesia or punning or paronymy fit into that process that you kind of demonstrated today? If you could kind of do a future show on that.
Oh, that's no problem. And and just as a disclosure, what I have shown today is just the beginning of the process for one to get at the etymology. As I stated, or as I shown or cited earlier, six areas of focus that you have to go through. and there's dozens of tests that you have to do in order to get that. So, but part of that conversation, so what you just asked is part of the cultural phase and the historical phase of the etymological journey, that extra linguistic, so what role does the psychology and the culture play in the usage and interpretation of words within a language community or speech community, right? So I'll be more than happy to put that together and try to make it timely, so you don't have to scrub long. But someone asked, was I ever in the Nation of Islam? No, I was not in the Nation of Islam. For people who know my story, I was a Hebrew Israelite, a Black Hebrew Israelite under the ICUPK. And after that experience, I said, the hell with all the groups. So no, I didn't jump from that and jump to the Nation of Islam. But no, that's not the case. And you see, eat is the topic of your presentation for I'm assuming you meant what is the topic of my presentation. The title of my presentation is Into Calm, the Need and Emergence of an Afrocentric Egyptological Discipline. So I'm going to be discussing this emerging discipline called Into Calm. And let me see. And if so, since you aren't anymore, do you now eat pork sandwiches? No, I don't eat pork. But that has nothing to do with the Nation of Islam. That was in the Bible, Leviticus 11:7. So now I got to start reading again. So y'all making me go back, into my backsliding Hebrew Israelite days. And he said ISUPK. Yep. Back then it was called the ICUPK, the Israeli Church of Universal Practical Knowledge, in the 90s, in the early and mid 90s. And so yeah. And he says, were you wearing the medieval Power Ranger outfits? Yes, I was. And I pray to the ancestors and the Almighty Ra that no photo ever emerges from out of the ether. So there were no digital phones back then. You had to have a camera. And so, I didn't take too many pictures with them, but I'm pretty sure somebody out there somewhere has a photo of me in my regalia, so to speak. He says, where's the conference on Friday? I'm in Philly. Well, there's a reception on Friday, so it's from 6 to 8. But the conference normally is 2 days of full conference, but this year they're only doing 1 day of a full conference in terms of the presentations. So that's going to be on Saturday, and it's going to be at Temple University. And let me just type in, what is this? Diopian? Yes, the DiopianInstitute.org. And so let me put that there, add the banner, and boom. So go to that website. It's https://diopianinstitute.org, and you will be able to get the details in terms of where it is located. And there is a cost, but if you are a student somewhere, it's drastically reduced. And so, check it out. But see, I don't know if the Friday reception has any cost. I doubt it does. But that's going to be at Temple University on the 8th floor at Gladfelter Hall. The address is given on the website. But the next day is going to be at the Temple Performing Arts Center, Chapel of Four Chaplains, right off of Broad Street, right? And that starts from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, but the reception is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm assuming that that's going to be free. I would think so. Let me see. General registration. Yeah. So I think the paying part is on for Saturday. And then I think the reception is free. So if you can't make it to or don't want to dish out the dough for Saturday, but you just want to come and at least meet some of the scholars and everyone that's presenting, I would advise you come to the reception from 6 to 8. And so follow that link, diopianinstitute.org, and you can go from there. Let me see here. I learned Kemet to have a complete personality. Sorry, can you end every public lecture asking for all that smoke? People are trying to sneak debate you instead of just debating you, asking for everyone because we want to see a war televised. They don't want to see me. That's they don't want to see me, not on this question, because I got stuff that I haven't revealed just yet. And so, if y'all, there's publications already out there. There's currently a journal article going to be under review, but you have my Ujima Volume 2. There's I think it's chapter 7 or 8, dealing with Kemet. You have our publication, the 2019 Ujima Volume 2 is 2020, but in 2019 we put together a presentation in a text called "A Contributions to the Debate on the Meaning of the Place Name Kemet." Then, of course, I have little tidbits in there, other publications, but then, of course, you have the article response to the folks on EgyptSearch.com, which I've made public on academia.edu from 2014. And so my general premise has been out there for a while, but all the details I have not published yet. So, people think they know my argument and what I'm basing it on. You have no clue. And I'm reserving that for an actual scholarly discussion with some real scholars, and not the YouTube circus show. But yep, the LP Institute is recorded. Yes, I will be. At least I'll be recording mine, and maybe even my session and panel, but I won't be recording all of it. But I heard that they might possibly live stream it. That hasn't been verified yet, so don't hold your breath. But it might be. That might be a reality, and if it is, I'll make sure that I dispense that information on all the social media platforms for those of you who are out of state and out of the city, and just want to get a glimpse of the conference. So hold your fingers, or cross your fingers to say. Where did China into and Proto-Indo-European geographically interact? More than likely in Mesopotamia, and in and around, like Mesopotamia on the edge, more so in and around Turkey, and Turkey, and let me make sure I'm looking. Put map of the world. And So yeah, so around that Turkey area. So there's many different hypotheses in terms of the origin of Indo-European. Now there are a lot of scholars. I think this is the most dominant, that believe the origins is in the Caucasus, like above the Black Sea, in the Caucasus area. And but there's a minority opinion that it started more so around where Turkey is, below the Black Sea, but Emboli appears to be within that camp. Yeah, around Turkey, Syria area, exactly. So, yeah. Okay, so no more questions. If you have any more questions, then put them in the below the video, and I'll try to respond there. Or you can hit me up on my website, which is asarimhotep.com. And yeah, so I will see some of y'all this weekend in Philly, and others I will see the next time I do a show. So it'll be probably next week, or I'll probably hop on someone else's shows this weekend. But y'all be safe, and until next time, peace.
see reality breaking down all my fantasies. It would be nice if I at least had one fantasy. That neutrality about to take a terabyte from the American apple pie, better get a slice. It's kinda scary the way that this life is moving on. Marvin's doing backflips inside his grave, what's going on? We have head-on collisions, not seeing another's vision. Maybe that's the reason why some colors fit the description. Lot of relationships need life rafts, sinking ships. I guess you just can't have only one like potato chips. I would love for you to listen with an open heart, but would you really even hear me if it's torn apart? I don't do the things that I used to.